Heschel was a wild man. His hair alone could spark a revolution, waving freely around his serious face with such abandon that even Mark Twain would blush. And that seems right. He was heir to a dynasty of great Hasidic rabbis, those Jewish pioneers that danced, told stories, and meditated for hours on mountaintops. I learned a couple of years ago that he actually wouldn't sit when he wrote. He would pace around, speak with friends, and go on walks. And when an idea came to him, he would draw an index card from his pocket, jot it down, and then stuff it behind the last scribbled note in the stack of papers in his cards in his other pocket. He wrote entire books like this, one fiery line at a time, presenting the stack to his assistant who would decipher the handwriting and compile the various gems into an essay or a book. That's why Heschel is so hard to read. It's not meant to be read all at once. There are mountains of meaning in every sentence, like poetry or Torah. The entire world, the sages say, can be found in just one line of Torah. So too with Heschel. Towards the end of his life, Heschel had become a legitimate celebrity. You can YouTube segments of TV interviews and specials on his life, activism, and teaching. Today we remember him in the same breath as Golda Meir and Martin Buber, and he loved to teach. One evening, he billed a speaking engagement for a large audience. The crowd gathered, filled the auditorium, and amidst the bustle of talk, most people didn't notice that the scheduled time for the lecture had actually come and gone. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes went by, and as the afternoon became evening, more and more people started to show signs of concern. Maybe there was something wrong. Heschel was an older man after all. Perhaps his body needed a bit more rest before he could come on. Or even the worse options. Perhaps the great thinker was in poor health. Eventually, the illustrious teacher did enter the hall, approached the lectern, but rather than the slow drag that might have accompanied his physical needs, the man practically danced into the room, jumped up to the microphone. "A miracle has taken place here, and just now," he exclaimed. "A great happening that is a gift from God." This certainly explained the tardiness, but none of the lecture goers knew what miracle he was talking about. There was no Twitter to speed up the sharing of information from days to seconds. The fastest way was to get the information was still from the source. So the audience hushed and waited for the great news. Heschel, with his intense, beady eyes and smoky explosion of a beard, looked out across the hundreds of people and said, "Just outside, just now, our beautiful sun set and shed every color of the palette across the sky. It was spectacular." They say that every rabbi has one sermon, and that they give it over and over again. That there's really only one message that we offer, but we find endless ways of saying it, countless new contexts to see the same understanding in a new light. Here is mine. We are surrounded by beauty. This world is made up of spectacular and majestic things, and like we learn from the Kabbalistic story, it is our task to travel the world and collect these shards of light, these things that move us to tears, that shake us to knowledge or love or awe or something else new. I believe that we are here to enjoy this world and everything beautiful in it. And I also believe that people have a unique beauty. That's why we gather in the synagogue, and why, without the ability to join together, the synagogue feels so empty. We remove ourselves from a building without so much as a look back. The space has no real value on its own. The Torahs remain in the ark while we create holy space here. What makes our holidays holy, what makes our lives sacred, is the people in them. Buildings are just where we deposit those memories. And that's why the quarantine is so difficult. We can't be together. And the virtual visits, they don't get us quite all the way there. There's just something lost when we don't find ourselves in the same space. I also believe that everything we do to become closer to the ones that we love. And so we study together, learn and find new ways to remove barriers that separate us from each other. I believe that we want to be together. And as Jews, we just have lots of ways to do it. Rituals, stories, history, these all help us better understand one another. The proper study of mankind is man, one writer writes. We Jews know that in our kitchkas. This is what makes loneliness so incredibly difficult as well. It's like viewing a painting without the colors. Life moves on, but without all the beauty, without each other. But what's more is there's no one else to bring us out of that space. We get stuck, and without all the sweetness that's right there. And it is possible to be lonely with other people. It's not about proximity of person, it's about proximity of heart. How close are we to meeting one another? Are we really listening to each other? Do we genuinely care about each other? And so we work on how to make each of us feel a part of the whole, how to make friends and build meaningful relationships. As with anything, the challenge is in the small things, the details. It takes a lot of work to get any of it right. And that is the work that we do together. I've thought a lot about what drew me to IHC. Our previous search found us in places all over the country, and to be honest, Indiana wasn't really on my map. We don't have any family in Indy. We only knew friends of friends. But two moments stand out in my mind. The first was the Friday night that we came to visit. On-site interviews are exhausting. 48 hours packed to the gills. I met a lot of people on my first visit. I shook a lot of hands. I did my best to remember names. I taught classes, tried to answer a myriad of questions very thoughtfully and carefully. And it was a relief to take a moment in the middle of all of that to enjoy a Shabbat evening service. The music was lovely. I think there was a guest speaker that night, and for announcements, somebody stepped up to the podium, drew a piece of paper from his pocket, unfolded it, and proceeded to pretend to read from it. I can't imagine what was on that paper, but there must have been quite a few words that he shared that were not on the page, because he continued on from synagogue happenings to describe a dream that he had. He shared how he hoped that I would, Rabbi Fox, a candidate for the associate position, join the community at IHC. He said he dreamt that I would be happy there. The dream, I can only imagine, was a bit made up, but the sentiment was real. He was welcoming me. And he wasn't afraid to break the established mode of things to do it. Everyone had a good laugh that evening, and it warmed my heart. I think it was in that moment that I decided that if I was lucky enough to get an offer from IHC, I was going to accept it. The other moment was in the car with Rabbi Brett. I don't remember the entire conversation, but at some point one of us mentioned a fairly uncommon song. And then we both started singing it at the exact same time. I don't know if you remember that, Rabbi Brett. I knew then it was a good fit. I came to IHC because of each of you. I've been blessed so deeply to spend sacred time with you. IHCU have been my community, my family these past 5 years. We celebrated together countless powerful moments in the lives of our families, including welcoming my own little one into the world. We've sat together and shared comfort, learned together, marched together, dreamed together, and grown together. I feel so grateful for the time that we have spent. Thank you for enjoying these sweet years with me. Thank you to all the countless hours you put into making this synagogue into the place that it is. Our synagogue serves thousands of people with a staff that is a tiny percentage of those numbers. We do it because of your hard work and love. And thank you to the amazing clergy partners I've had the joy to work with at IHC. And thank you to the amazing staff. I've learned from each and every one of you. Thank you for not minding when I burn my toast in the break room. Thank you for stopping in to grab a piece of candy and staying to talk for a half hour, 2 hours, goofing off and responding to late night emails and sharing stories about Game of Thrones. Cantor Aviva, I still have yet to see container homes, but I will. I will see it. Looking actually at housing prices in California, it might have actually been a better option for us. One of my favorite books was turned into a movie about 15 years ago. The book follows an introverted, quiet, young Jew on his journey to trace his roots in Eastern Europe. The visit turns into a bit of an adventure as he uncovers firsthand stories locked away in the memories of the people who still lived in the villages and towns his family fled from during the Second World War. In each place, Jonathan, played by Elijah Wood, finds trinkets, items, and objects that are part of the history he traveled to rediscover. And one after another, he pulls out a Ziploc bag, stashes the artifact away, and seals the top. Along the way, his character is not only changed because of the stories that he discovers about his family, his history, but he changes the villagers and guides too. They both grow from the experience. The final scene is one that has stayed with me since the first of many times that I've seen the movie. Jonathan gets back on the plane, returns to the United States, and as soon as he steps through the gate and onto home ground, he notices that there's something different. The flight attendant in the terminal looks very familiar. The workers behind the store counters and the baggage handlers, the security agent too. The director of the film, Liev Schreiber, until this moment took very little poetic license in telling Jonathan Safran Foer's story. But in this moment, he strikes a note of genius. Every character played in the final scene of the movie, after the protagonist is returned back to the United States, is played by an actor that also performed a character he met on his adventure overseas. In a new medium, the director shows something profound and shockingly obvious in the way that lives and relationships work. We are forever changed by the people who affect us. So much so that they change our world completely after we have known them. Sacred engagements from one moment in time radiate through every moment that comes after them. IHC, you have moved me, changed me, and inspired me. And I am bringing you with me. We say in Hebrew not goodbye, but lehitraot, which literally means I'll be seeing you. I know that some of you I will actually get to see. Ken and Shannon, I very much look forward to that. I know, and that brings me a tremendous amount of joy. Southern California is sometimes a destination and sometimes simply the place that you visit family. And if it helps you to come visit, Disneyland is 12 miles from our new house. But I will see you every day because I'm carrying you in my heart all the way out to the West Coast. And for me, that's comforting. So I say thank you, IHC, for being beautiful, for coloring my life, and for being with me here and always.